Hey, hello and welcome. It's time for the Classic Guitar Rock Daily Update. I'm Jeremy. It is Monday, October 28th, 2024, just a few days away from Halloween. Yeah. And then a few days after that, the election. Won't we all be glad when the election is over and we can just get back to normal? Man, I hate the political season. It's a pain. No politics here. You know our policy. We love you. I don't care who you're voting for. Doesn't matter. And I don't want to hear about it. But thank you for coming for today's update. Now, we've talked a few times about Alex Van Halen's new book, Brothers. It's an autobiography slash tribute to his brother, Eddie. And of course, the good thing about this book is, when you write a book, you have to do press. And Alex, of all the Van Halen members, he's the most secluded, almost like a hermit, right? We've never hear anything from Alex. So from that standpoint alone, it's awesome that he's out doing publicity for this book, sitting down, doing interviews, and it's good to hear from him. I like Alex. I'd like to hear more from him. So over the weekend, he was doing an interview with Ariel Levy, who was a collaborator on the book. So they're doing some press together. And he talks about the first time, I wasn't aware of this, the first time David Lee Roth auditioned for the band in 1972. And guess what? He didn't get in, right? Alex says, we started playing a song, and by the time we were done, Dave finally took a first word, which is a slight exaggeration, but he had a real long drawl. When it was apparent that this was not going to work, the first thing Ed did was left the room, and he said, all yours, Al. Oddly enough, I must say I had nothing but respect for Dave because he was there. He gave it his best shot. And from my view, he did not take it lightly. So all I could say was, hey, man, I'm sorry, but I don't think this is going to work. So he left on amicable terms until the next 2 years go by. Everybody in town is either going to college, they go out, whatever they do. And there's only a few people left who are actually serious about pursuing a life in music. And I mean a life. This is a full-time job. So obviously, Dave got the job later. But Alex goes on to say that the split with David Lee Roth in 85 was, quote, the most disappointing thing I'd experienced in my life. The thing that seemed the most wasteful and unjust until I lost my brother, end quote. So second to losing his brother was when the original Van Halen lineup broke up. And, the band experienced a lot of success with Sammy, right? And there's a whole debate, Sammy versus Dave. Here's what Alex says, quote, what happened after Dave left is not the same band. I'm not saying it was better or worse or any of that. The fact is, Ed and I did our best work whenever we played. We always gave it our best shot. But the magic was in the first years when we didn't know what we were doing, when we were willing to try anything, end quote. My thoughts on the Van Halens, right? And when I say the Van Halens, I mean the Dave era or the Sammy era. I do the same thing with AC/DC. I treat them as two different bands because they're both excellent in their own right, especially with Van Halen, completely different. I mean, the Van Halen with Dave is completely the style of songwriting. Everything was different. You can't compare the two. And if you do, you're shortchanging yourself because you're missing out on great music on both sides, right? So I approach it as two different bands. Love them both. And so I never participate in the argument, who's better, Sammy or Dave? Well, they were completely different bands. Dave was better at what Dave did. Sammy was better at what Sammy did. Two different bands. Same can be said for AC/DC. But I think it's more pronounced in Van Halen. Geddy Lee. What do you think, by the way, about the whole Van Halen thing? Are you pro Dave, anti Sam, pro Sam, anti Dave? I love them both. I can't decide, right? Again, Dave was better at being Dave. Sam was better at being Sam. No argument. Two excellent eras. Geddy Lee will be releasing a new book. You know, he had My Effing Life last year, or 22 when that came out, and he did a lot of press for that. Now he's got a new book. Hi, Marlon. Thanks for checking in. You guys can all check in live via the chat, whether you're on Facebook, X, or YouTube. Marlon joining us from YouTube. Thank you, sir. There's a new book that Geddy's got coming out, and it is called 72 Stories. Now, this, we all knew this about Geddy. He's an avid baseball collector, a big fan of baseball. If you're watching the Blue Jays play, chances are you'll see Geddy sitting right there a few rows behind he's got good tickets, right? So he's right behind the home plate. You often see Geddy there watching the Blue Jays play. Big fan of baseball. When they were on the road, he would often, on a day off, go take in a baseball game. So he big baseball fan. L.A. Hightower, thanks for checking in. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us here today. So this new book, 72 Stories, is about baseball, and specifically about his baseball collection. The book will center on Lee's extensive baseball collection, and will be released May 13th of 2025. He says, quote, "Collecting is a younger person's game. As you get older, you're trying to simplify your life, not complicate it even more. I'm very bad at that. I appear to have really complicated a part of my life that should be much simpler than it is, but that's my nature. I have so many baseballs, so many wonderful memories tied up in here. A number of years ago, the fellow who I built my collection with passed on. I really have not bought a significant item since then. I've added things to my collection, but they're mostly gifts from good friends that are in baseball or players. I would never sell any of those." But he started to sell some things in November of last year. He sold 300 pieces, including a baseball signed in 1965 by members of the Beatles, estimated to be worth between 100 and 300,000. He also, this was really cool, he donated a lot of stuff to the Negro League Museum. There's a museum for the old Negro League. Imagine how, some of the greatest baseball players ever played in the Negro League. They weren't allowed to play in the major leagues. So back in the 40s, it wasn't until like the mid 50s with Jackie Robinson and Willie Mays that some of these players actually got signed to the major leagues. Well, the Negro League arguably had the better players back in the 30s and 40s. Well, Geddy had a bunch of baseballs and other memorabilia. He donated a lot of that to a museum dedicated to the Negro League. So that's pretty cool. He says, "Collections need to be fed, and I was no longer tending to my baseball collection. I was busy buying bass guitars and learning about vintage instruments. I have so many things that I want to do, that I want to learn, and I had let my baseball memorabilia sort of get dusty. So I just thought, nothing lasts forever. We're just a custodian of these things until we pass them to the next custodian. Let me give a gift to all the collectors out there. Let's make these things available that have not been on the market for years, and let the collectors have it. I have no regrets about it. I still have a huge collection of baseball ephemera. I guess that's different than memorabilia. That has meaning to me. Some of them are very personal. I kept some wonderful things." So he sold a bunch of his stuff. He's got this book coming out about his collection. So if you're a baseball nerd, I'm kind of a baseball nerd. And what draws me to baseball creepily is the statistics, right? Baseball, more than any sport, it's a sport for status. Moneyball. You got to go watch the movie Moneyball. If you've never watched that movie, you got to see it. I kind of nerd out on that element of baseball. Marlon says, "Many hoarders call themselves collectors." That is exactly right, Marlon. My son, my youngest son, who is 16, he's a collector, man. He's got baseball and football cards. He's got I'm a comic book collector. That's the only thing I guess you could say I really collect is comic books. So he and I collect comic books together. He collects coins. He collects, now his big thing is he collects lawnmowers. Yeah, and fixes them, which is good because he fixes them and sells them. So I'm all for that. But there is a hoarding element to it. Absolutely. I can't deny it. The biggest argument my wife and I have ever gotten into was when she threw out something of mine that she thought was junk that to me was not junk. Yeah, that was the biggest fight we ever had. I'm a hoarder. Okay, sorry. All right. ZZ Top. You guys know I'm a fan of the ZZ Top. I love Billy Gibbons. He's one of my top 5 guitarists. Of course, at the top, Marlon knows this, Michael Schenker. Michael Schenker is my favorite guitar player. It kind of changes from time to time, but Michael's been at the top for a while. Billy Gibbons is in there. Alex Lifeson is in my top 5. Jeff Beck. Anyways, Billy Gibbons and ZZ Top will be crisscrossing the U.S. in early 2025. Let's see. There's a solo trek. So Billy's kind of out solo now, in fact, I think. But then the ZZ Top tour will start in March. You know, I have mixed feelings about seeing ZZ Top live. And well, I'll say it. We're friends, right? We're friends. I can say this. Love ZZ Top. I mean, Tres Hombres, probably my top 2 albums of all time, right? Tres Hombres is a brilliant album. Eliminator is a brilliant album. Okay, a lot of fans, you know, they think that, oh, it got too. Guys, commercial's not a dirty word. It's not a dirty word. There are some great albums that are flat out commercial albums, and they're awesome. Eliminator, yeah, commercial album. It's an awesome album. Tres Hombres, though, gosh, ZZ Top's first album, Rio Grande, the first 3, they're just awesome. For as great as the albums are, ZZ Top is not a great live band. It troubles me to say it, but they're just not. They're okay. They're not bad. Don't get me wrong. But, you know, there are some bands that their albums are okay, but they're live. Cheap Trick is a live band. Okay. They've got some good albums. They've got a couple I'd call great albums, but Cheap Trick is a live band. They are much better live. Okay. UFO, as much as I love UFO, their best album is a live album. Okay. ZZ Top's albums are better than they are live. So they're kind of the flip side. And I can't point to any. I've just seen ZZ Top about, I don't know, 4 or 5 times. And every time I leave the show, I'm like, that was good. I mean, I'm glad I saw it, but they don't blow me away live. The Cars. Okay. The Cars debut album, phenomenal album. One of the best albums ever. The Cars suck live. And I will say they suck live. Okay. They're not a good live band. Zero energy, zero charisma. Yeah, not good. Elliot Easton's good. He plays good live, but the band overall, concerts suck. And now ZZ Top's not that bad. They're a good show. Don't get me wrong. Their shows are good, but I'd rather go see Cheap Trick live any day of the week than ZZ Top, where I'd probably rather listen to a ZZ Top album any day of the week over a Cheap Trick album. Does that make sense? I hope I haven't offended anyone. Okay. Anyways, ZZ Top out on the road. You should go see him. Don't get me wrong. Billy Gibbons still plays great. I mean, they don't have a lot of charisma, not a lot of energy. Just not, yeah, they're just not a great live band. Speaking of great live bands that aren't great, Have you heard this? Have you seen it? Frankie Valli of the Four Seasons. Have you seen this footage? It makes your heart sick when you see it. Okay. Here's Frankie Valli, 90 years old, can barely move around, clearly lip syncing. Looks like he's being propped up with a 2x4 in the back because he can't hardly move. And he's surrounded by all these younger guys doing the doo-wop stuff. And then he steps forward and sings, and his mouth can barely, he's obviously lip syncing, and it's embarrassing. There was actually speculation that someone was making him do it, that some evil promoter was forcing Frankie Valli because he doesn't look like he wants to be there. Well, he has no facial expression. He's 90 years old. He's up there lip syncing. So you maybe have seen some of this footage. Just Google Frankie Valli live. You'll see it. Kind of makes you mad. But the good news is, Frankie says, quote, I know there has been a lot of stuff on the internet about me lately, so I wanted to clear the air. I am blessed to be 90 years old and still be doing what I love to do. And as long as I am able and audiences want to come see me, I'm going to be out there performing as I always have. I absolutely love what I do, and I know we put on a great show because our fans are still coming out in force and the show still rocks. I get a chuckle from the comments wondering if someone's forcing me to go on stage. Nobody has ever made me do anything I want to do. And then, asked or addressing this assumption that he's lip syncing, he's kind of coy about this. He says, if I say I'm not, you either believe me or you don't. What kind of answer is that? He's obviously lip sync. I mean, you watch it. And okay, Marlon, this is one of the saddest cases. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Johnny Winter was carried out on stage near the end of his life. Absolutely. And you can see footage of him literally being carried out, set in a chair for him to play. It's kind of shameful, actually. It's kind of sad. And you're wondering, why is this happening? Does Johnny really want to be? Does Johnny know he's here? Seriously, it's that bad. And to Marlon, you're right. He actually still played pretty good, but his voice is, and the way they'd work is he has a good band. The backing band would come out and play a few tunes. Then they'd roll him out and do his set, and the band kind of carries him a lot, right? And you're just like, here's all I'm going to say. Hopefully Johnny wanted to be doing that, and there wasn't someone out there forcing him to do it just to make money. But yeah, no, and that's one of the, so here's let me finish this point. We'll talk about this. So from the Captain Obvious file, a few performers chimed in on this Frankie Valli thing. Graham Nash says, Frankie Valli is not singing. He's just lip syncing badly to a tape. As a musician, if you're not singing, you shouldn't be on stage, end quote. I think we all agree with that. Now, Graham Nash says, as an example, he says, look at Joni Mitchell. Joni Mitchell is an example of an aging artist, right? Someone who's old, who instead of trying to lip sync or fool people, is just kind of changing the way she does the show. He says, quote, she certainly doesn't have the top end range that she used to have, but at the same time, there is a beauty. What we are getting instead of a top range is incredible phrasing in a lower range. So she's just singing the songs different. And all of them do that, right? Robin Zander of Cheap Trick, who still sounds incredibly good. He can't really sing If You Want My Love, You Got It. He can't really, it doesn't sound that good live anymore. He brings it down a little bit. They change it up a little bit. Ann Wilson of Heart, she chimed in on it. Oh my God, his face is completely still. He looks like he's not even there. She's talking about Frankie Valli. I suppose he's not. I think that's the moment when you have to decide whether to walk off stage or not. You really have to look at your morals and go, do I just want to go up there and phone it in, give a BS performance because I'm me? Or do I take the high road, meaning take the high road and not do it, quit doing it? So this is it's a constant thing, and there's only going to be more of it, right? This is the ongoing debate, discussion about many singers. Vince Neil, for the last 5 years, he can't sing. I mean, it's a joke. Okay. Bob Dylan's never been able to sing, right? Whatever. So on the one hand, we can all sit back and say, oh, that sounds terrible. Give it up. Why are you doing it? On the other hand, people are still buying tickets. Who am I to tell Vince Neil or Frankie Valli that, dude, you guys suck and can't sing anymore. You shouldn't be allowed to do it. Well, that's not my decision to make. If people are willing to pay money to go see it, who am I to deny that? Okay. Again, same thing about these bands that don't have original members. If people are aware that there aren't original, that's the key. If people are aware there aren't original members and are still willing to buy the tickets, then it is what it is. Okay. Okay. We do have some sad news here. Phil Lesh, bassist and founding member of the Grateful Dead, died on Friday at the age of 84. Quote, he was surrounded by his family and full of love. Phil brought immense joy to everyone around him and leaves behind a legacy of music and love. His bandmate, Bob Weir, posted an extensive tribute to Lesh on X. He says, quote, let's just say Phil wasn't particularly averse to ruffling a few feathers. We had our differences, of course, but it's not platitudinous to say that only made our work together more meaningful. Our conversation and interaction will last at very least till the end of my days. End quote. I'm just being honest. I just never gained a real appreciation for the Grateful Dead. They're all musicians wise, they're great. I just was not a fan of their music. What about you? I tried to get into them. I just couldn't do it. Obviously, they have one of the most ardent fan bases ever. These people that just travel around to Dead shows. It's amazing. And I always really liked Jerry Garcia. He was just one of those musicians that I really wanted to like their music. I just couldn't get into it. But our condolences definitely go out to the family of Phil Lesh and the Grateful Dead family. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Let me end with a plug, as I always do, to check out the radio station, Classic Guitar Rock Radio. And I'll even further plug and say, if you have a product or service that you market, particularly to Gen X folks, to us, you should be advertising on CGR Radio. I mean, you would be amazed. The prices are so low, I can't publish them. Okay. That's how low they are. Just throwing it out there. Kind of like, a furniture sale. Prices are so low, they can't be published. I don't know. I would always wonder when commercials, these prices are so low, we can't publish them. Well, that sounds shady. Yeah. So let me offer up a shady deal for you. Price is so low, I can't publish them. Anyways, seriously, we reach a lot of Gen Xers. Okay. I mean, that's our core demo. If you have a product or service that you direct towards those folks, dude, let me make you an offer you can't refuse. Just shoot me an email, classicguitarrock@mail.com. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll do it all again later. Live long and prosper. Bye-bye.